Alright, a new form of Liael is here, fused with Gabwellius. So let's begin. So first off, let's start off with the Bladmire stuff with Noxus Hurler, which is grade 1 with K power and the skills. Auto, when put to soul during your turn from deck, if you have at least a grade 3 Vanguard Bladmire, cost energy blast 3, call this the back row rearguard circle, and then soul charge 1. It's just too bad that this is restricted to grade 3 Vanguard Bladmire, because this could have been a nice early game attacker. But also, it kinda sucks that it has to be soul charged from deck only, which Bladmire as a deck doesn't really have much other than the ride line. And then we go to Bombing Juggler, which is a grade 3 with drinking power and the skills. Auto rearguard, when your bind zone has 4 or more face down cards, this cost is reduced by energy blast 2. So the skill is when this card attacks, if your Vanguard is at least a grade 3 Bladmire, cost energy blast 2. This card gets plus 10k power in the end of the battle, and then at the end of the battle put this to soul, in which the second skill is linked to the first one technically, where auto, when put to soul by card ability, while your Vanguard is at least a grade 3 Bladmire, cost bind this card face down and choose one of your rearguards, it gets plus 5k power in your turn, and your bind zone has at least 8 plus 10k instead. So it's a bit debatable whether this is worth swapping out with Colossus, but Colossus, the 10k power buff is restricted to only if you have 4 face down in your bind zone, while this one lets you get the 10k power buff whenever you want as long as you pay 2 energy, but if you have the 4 face down you no longer need to pay it. But the bigger debatable part is the put to soul ability. Is it worth the 5k power buff, or is the draw better, or 10k if you're in the later game? It is personal preferences here, but I do say this might be still worth running just because you can still use this as a first attacker with a power buff that could also bind itself. And now to the new Liael stuff, starting with Descending Eagle, which is grade 1 with K power and the skills. Auto, when bound during your turn, if your Vanguard is at least a grade 3 Liael, choose a grade 1 or higher normal unit that is not sentinel from your drop zone and put it to the bottom of the deck. In my opinion, a bit too restrictive because this one has to be the specific target to Liael. Although spoiler alert, you can also bind from drop zone now, so in a way you could actually tech this in, but personally there's better stuff. And then we go to Knight of Magnificent Beauty and Might, which is a grade 1 with K power and the skills. Auto rearguard, when your unit is placed on the other rearguard in the same column as this unit, and it's by the grade 3 Vanguard Liael, cost put this to soul, and that unit gets plus 5k power. Personally, if I'm going to have this type of ability where it's going to be placed by same column, I'd rather use Ishtar, which is the re-standard for multi-boosting, but considering that this card can put itself to soul, it does help soul with the resources, or just use the next card, which is Knight of Distant Bow Amu, which is a grade 1 with K power and the skills. Auto, when placed on rearguard, choose a grade 3 Liael from your ride deck, and either that or your Vanguard is at least a grade 3 Liael, energy charge 1. This will actually be a little more important now, considering that the new Liael, spoiler alert, uses energy, in which the second skill is auto rearguard. At the end of battle, this unit boosts while your Vanguard is at least a grade 3 Liael, and your opponent's Vanguard is also grade 3. Cost, put this to soul, you get this skill into the end turn. All your front row rearguards get plus 5k power. Too bad it doesn't say all your front row units, because it would be nice if it gives your Vanguard power as well, which Vanguard power itself is a bit lacking in my opinion. But it is still pretty nice overall, because 1, it gives yourself the skill for the whole turn, meaning that you won't lose the 5k power for the front row, especially with Liael's divine skill where it's going to ride into a new one, you will still continue having that 5k power. And the second thing is, once again, soul. Kinda similar to the other one, but this one's even better. Liael did struggle with soul, so having another way to just soul charge is also very nice. That can also be used as a booster and an extra power buff and energy charges. So this one is a must play. And now to the new form of Liael, Faded One of Sacred Time Liael Draconis. So one important thing already is that it still has Faded One in name. And another is that its original name, so that might be important for future reasons, but that means that you can still use original Liael for its PG cost, and of course Gabwellius most importantly. But anyway, it's a grade 3 with 13k power, and the skill is act Vanguard once per turn, cost energy blast 4, bind a normal unit rearguard or from the drop zone, and then choose a card from your hand, discard it, and drive plus 1 in your turn. Usually this would be considered okay, but in combination with the second skill for what the deck does, it actually makes sense, because the second skill is kind of retained from the original, where auto Vanguard, when this card attacks, cost counter blast 1, choose one of your rearguards and bind it, and then search your deck for one same card name as one of your bind cards, and call it to rearguard, and of course shuffle your deck. So first off, the first skill added with the second skill now means that for the deck itself, you get additional binding, which means additional ability. The first skill lets you do it in the main phase, which in timing wise might be better for certain cards, especially since certain cards get a certain power up if you have the card in the bind zone. So having that before battle can actually be quite nice, especially for the part that you could bind from the drop zone. But adding on top of the second skill retaining pretty much the original skill, of course it's still the multi-attack skill, but with a little bit of a tweak where you can choose any of the same cards as the ones you have bound, that includes added from your first skill, is just very nice, because now you are not as restricted as before, because before you're restricted to only calling the one that you bound. Especially, it's also nice that the first skill lets you bind from the drop zone as well, giving you more options for you to bind, of course, and not for you to be hurtful by losing your key pieces. And also, because of that extra bind, Liael Amorta is now active on your first grade 3 ride. Since Amorta herself needs at least 2 bind cards, and because this card can bind 2 in a turn, Liael Amorta's PG skill can now be active. So already a pretty decent upgrade. But the third skill, which is the Divine skill, where auto Vanguard, at the end of battle this card attacks, if your opponent's Vanguard is at least grade 3, choose a grade 3 or greater card that is Liael from your soul or drop and ride as stand, and of course if you road, drive becomes 1 in a turn. Basically similar to the original, except now you can ride from soul as well, in case that you don't soul blast, but most of the time you're going to soul blast it out. The drive becomes 1 does make a huge difference, especially for future reasons where if certain card says you get a drive +1 on your Vanguard for the rest of the turn. But overall, it is a decent upgrade to the original. It will definitely be the new grade 3 of the ride deck since you don't need the original technically. It does extra binding, extra drive check, and a little more flexible, definitely. So I am overall pretty happy with what we got. And finally, here are the secret rares. Kinda surprised that we got a third Mistitch as a secret rare rather than a big boss unit, but oh well. And next week we're just getting the product reveals along with basically some support. So that's it for these new reveals of the new Liael being a dragon, along with some Bladmire support. What do you guys think of it? I mean, the one card for Bladmire is kind of fine. It's just debatable. Do you prefer running that over Colossus or just run both? As for Liael, the one new support card that puts itself to soul with 5k power buff for the front row is just helpful, but the new Liael Draconis itself is a pretty good update to the original. Basically a more flexible version of the original that also plays a little more offensively, and also more importantly, an extra bind. That was one of the issues that the original Liael had, is because we did not have extra binding, which was also making the deck absurdly slow. But this new Liael does fixes some of the issues, mainly with one, of course, like I said, the extra binding, and also the flexibility of calling any of the same card names as the bind cards rather than the one that you just bound. But other than that, I'm not going to say the deck is going to be absurdly good, but it does help the deck a lot. And so that's it for this, and see you all next time.